One of the aspects of Russian propaganda that most strikes me is that its effectiveness often seems wholly unconnected to its plausibility. Some of the most contagious conspiracy theories created or fomented by the Russian state have also been, in my view, some of the most ludicrously preposterous. To genuinely accept those stories, one would, for example, have to be convinced that Hillary Clinton can mesmerize tens of millions of people, except, I suppose, when it comes to persuading them to vote for her. My sense is that effective propaganda requires not only a committed liar, but also an audience that is not merely susceptible to those lies, but also eager to believe them. So eager, in fact, that they are willing to set aside all reason and common sense to do so. My question to you is, why are there so many people who seem to prefer these preposterous lies over obvious truths? In the United States, in particular, this is a society where patriotism, often very public and ostentatious patriotism, is part of the national culture. Yet, many of the people most drawn to public displays of patriotism also seem to be the most keen to believe that propaganda peddled by Russia, a flat enemy of the United States. What is going on here?
Well, I think it's been analyzed before, and I have seen it mentioned that if people are shown that what they're sharing is a lie, they will continue to do it if they think that it suits their agenda somehow, that it helps their side. So I think that's what the Russian propaganda tapped into, is that if they can convince the Republican voters that they're with them, that they somehow support their values, that they want them to win, then they will continue to share that content, even they know it's completely fake. And for some people, it's a matter of entertainment because they make their propaganda very colorful. They try to be funny. They try to be wild, and so some participate in it because it's could be shocking content or entertaining content, and they choose to put it out there just because they see it as something that's fun that will get them engagement as well. So those are very selfish motives, and they have learned how to exploit them.
In your view, how is it that so many people are persuaded that the narratives being peddled by Russia are in the best interest of their side when they see themselves as being patriotic Britons or Frenchmen or Americans or otherwise? It does seem odd to me that many of these people who would describe themselves very sincerely as being patriots nevertheless have bought into Russian propaganda, if only, as you put it, because they believe that advances their side. How has that happened?
I think a lot of it has to do with the mainstream media being so actively discredited. So they're automatically discounting whatever they have heard about Russia, and Russia as the enemy of the United States. They immediately discount all that as being fake. And if they watch something like RT, and they have actually boasted about creating content in 18 different languages that masquerades as other outlets. They don't say it's RT or in any way affiliated with the Russian government. So there's a lot of that content floating out there that says, well, Russia is really not your enemy. They just want to be friends. They just want what's fair. They just want that piece of land that belonged to them anyway. And oh, by the way, they're supporting that party that you want to win. So it's a win-win. Why should we be at war with Russia? Russia is our friend. And a lot of people fall for that, because if you don't trust other media, then what is there left? It's just what you hear on social media, which is also full of Russian trolls and propagandists. And then this content that they're flooding the world with, and they're boasting about how popular their content is in Spanish speaking countries, how much influence they have in India, South Africa, many different places. And so they're very, very proactive in that. And having done so much to discredit real media and reporting, they're flooding the space with content of their own creation. And it's remarkably effective, unfortunately.
So, if part of the power of Russian propaganda comes from weakening public trust in mainstream media and traditional media, From the other side of the ledger, why has mainstream media not been able to combat that? Mainstream media does start off with significant advantages in terms of scale, reach, established historical presence. Why has it been susceptible to attacks on its credibility?
I don't see a very active resistance to that, and even the coverage of the war in Ukraine has been, it comes and goes. They get distracted with other topics. There's no consistency there. And sometimes they try to do the both sides of the story kind of reporting. And, people get disenchanted with that. Unfortunately, there has to be more consistency, and you can't say the war in Ukraine is important one week and then the next week you barely mention it. People notice that too, and they start to assume it's all about the ratings, it's all about popularity, and not about issues that truly matter.